Hey everyone, welcome back to Stamp with Anna, and today I'm going to show you how I made this really beautiful card. It is made using the brand new Floral Essence, which is in the 2019-2020 Stampin' Up! Catalog, which just went live earlier this month. If you don't have a demonstrator with whom you work and you would like to receive a copy of the catalog, certainly contact me through my blog and I'll be happy to send one out to you. But anyway, this stamp set is called Floral Essence, and we're going to use this beautiful rose, this leaf here, and this sentiment, wishing you a blissful future. So what we need for paper is our base, which is the new Rococo Rose, and it is cut 5.5 by 8.5, scored at 4 1/4. And then we have the matting piece, which I've already attached to my base. And this is Whisper White. It's 5 1/8 by 3 7/8. And then our card front is Crumb Cake, and it is 5 by 3 3/4. So we're going to start out doing a lot of embossing. Basically, the card is all embossed, and then a little bit of watercolor. So because we're doing a lot of embossing, we're going to use our embossing buddy, which will just cut down on the static and will help our embossing powder just stick where it's supposed to. And because the stamp set is photopolymer, I'm going to use my Pierce mat, and I'm going to bring in a piece of a scrap paper just to protect my mat, because my embossing is going to go off of my card front. So obviously, to do my embossing, I'm going to use some Versamark ink, and here is the gorgeous rose. I'm going to ink that up, and I'm going to put one in the bottom corner and ink it up again, and then I'm going to put one up in the top corner, and this one is just a little off of the card base and the card front, and that's how I want it. Next, I'm going to do the same thing with my leaves. I'm going to just attach them, stamp them up, ink them up with some Versamark ink, and then just randomly add some to my flower. And you can put as few or as many leaves as you want. Your flower might have a lot of leaves. Your flower might not have any leaves. Totally up to you. It's your creation. And then one more right about there. All right. Now I'm going to do my embossing. Because I have I've stamped all over this, I want to find a corner, a safe corner, and this is going to be it right here, and that's where I'm going to hold my paper from. So I'm going to open up my white piece of scrap paper, and I'm going to sprinkle gold embossing powder all over my creation here, and just sprinkle it all over, and then tap it, and it will stick where the embossing, the Versamark is. Now here I have a couple little specks with my little paintbrush. I'm just going to take that off, and here I can see I didn't get great coverage, so I'm going to go back, add a little more gold, give it a once over before I start heat embossing to make sure that everything is nice and covered. And you can certainly do as I'm doing, just dunking some more in it, or you can just take that and run that over your paper like that. Now I'm going to just shake it all off, and I'm going to put it aside very gently, making sure I don't touch any of that powder, because then it will come off and I will have an empty spot when I heat emboss. Okay, now a little bit of powder goes a long way when you're embossing, and that's what makes it so great. So now I'm going to take this back, and I'm going to hold it here, and with my heat tool I'm going to start embossing. And when you're embossing, you want to keep your gun moving, and you want to kind of go in a sequence. So if you're all over the place, you're ultimately inevitably going to miss some spots. So I see here I started up on the left side. I got that leaf done, and now I'm coming down. I'm going to go over this rose, and it does go quicker because the hotter your paper gets and the more your heat tool heats up, the quicker it's going to melt that embossing powder. And now that I have that rose all done, I'm going to move on to my next little leaf right here. And quickly, I'm going to move up here. So I'm doing it in a nice, orderly way. That way I know I'm not going to have naked spots on my card. Everything is going to be beautifully embossed. Now, of course, when you're done, you do want to give it a once-over, just in case you did miss something that you didn't notice that you missed first time around. Okay, but I think I'm good, except for right here. All right. Now, I should have, but I did not, I should have embossed my sentiment at the same time, but I didn't. So I'm going to go back and do that. And it says, wishing you a blissful future. And I'm going to put that right, oh, I guess I didn't leave enough space. See, on this one here, I left room for it right there. But on this one, I didn't really leave a lot of room. So we're going to go with it. And I'm going to put it, you know what? I think I'm going to put it on the inside of my card, because I don't want to overcrowd my card here. Okay, so that's that. We're going to leave it at that. So now I need to color my roses. And for that, I'm going to bring in an acrylic block. And I'm going to use some white re-inker. I'm going to just put a couple drops on my block. And I have an aqua pen. The barrel is filled with water. And I'm going to squeeze it so that my bristles are wet, so you can see the water's coming out on my hand. So my bristles are wet, and I'm going to pick some of this up, gently squeezing. I do not want to mix a bunch of water in this, because then my flower is going to be too wet. And also we have to keep in mind that this is not watercolor paper. This is regular cardstock, so if you make it too wet, it's going to pill. So I'm going to just lightly brush this white onto my flower. It will dry lighter than it looks right now. Now you do have all of that gorgeous gold embossing. Most of it will still come through, but just be mindful of it as you're coloring. You don't want to cover all of the beautiful embossing. But it'll still show through if you do get some white on it. Okay, now I'm going to move on to this one here. And as you can see, this looks very different already from my sample, because my roses weren't stamped in the same place. So I'm going to make a change to my design, which is not a problem. I'm just going to grab an extra piece of Whisper White, put it on the inside, and I will emboss my sentiment on the inside of the card instead of on the outside. And that's perfectly fine with me. I don't have a problem with that. Okay, so there is my beautiful white base. I want to get the white off the tip of my pen, so I'm just going to squeeze it a little more. Now I'm going to put a couple drops of the Rococo Rose on my block here. And again, I want my bristle to be wet. Okay, and I'm going to dip my aqua painter in there, and I'm going to lightly color in my rose. Again, remembering this is not watercolor paper, so you do not want to oversaturate your paper, because it will pill. And I'm just going to go over it. And I'm not a big colorer, a big watercolor person, but this is such an easy technique. And you can see no two will ever look the same. So this one here, I'm just going to come in and go around. And I think with that nice white base coming through, it just gives the flower such a soft little look. And when you are painting, or even inking, stamping and inking, always remember, you can always go back and add some more, but you can't take it off. So see how gorgeous that looks? And I like the little white peeking through. I think that looks so pretty. So again, I'm going to just take that color off of my bristles. I'm going to put a tiny drop of Daffodil Delight, just a tiny bit. I'm going to wet that up, and I'm going to do the insides of my centers of my flowers, I should say. And there we go. Now let me just bring that up nice and high so you can see it. And see, it's very different from this one. The design looks a little different, and the colors look a little different, and they're both equally as gorgeous. So what I'm going to do now is emboss the inside of my card. So hold on one sec, I need to get an inside liner. You know, I had a change of heart. This card opens this way, and I have that right there. Because I lined up my flowers differently, I can't fit my sentiment. I'm going to open my card this way, and I'm going to put my sentiment across that way. That's how I'm going to fix my faux pas. So I'm going to, again, bring in my Pierce mat, and I'm going to ink up my sentiment. It says, wishing you a blissful future, and I'm going to drop that straight down, straight up, and now I'm just going to emboss that with some gold embossing powder. So never fear, there are never mistakes in stamping and paper crafting. They're just opportunities to change your design or add some embellishments, right? That's what I tell the ladies all the time at class. There's no mistakes. So I'm going to take my heat tool and just heat this up. And even though the sentiment is small, the letters are small, the beautiful embossing powder looks gorgeous, and you can definitely read it. Sometimes you can't read embossed words, but this time they came out beautiful because it's a great stamp. So now the last thing I'm going to do is just attach my card front to my card base, and there's a tiny little border there because I wanted a tiny border. And then I do have a piece of white that I'm going to just put on the inside. And I did cut this 3 3¾ by 5 because I wanted a larger border for the inside. There we go. One on the horizontal and one vertically, and each one is equally as pretty as the other. The watercolor technique is just gorgeous. So if you have any questions about this project or any of the products I used, certainly contact me through my blog, www.stampwithanna.blogspot.com. And like I said, if you don't have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator with whom you work, certainly just contact me, and I'll be glad to get a catalog out to you. And one more thing I did want to show you. Before I colored these in, I did hold this one because I'm having a class. I'm going to show this to the ladies. The card is equally as pretty without coloring the flowers. You see that? So if you're looking for something a little more neutral, this would be a perfect way to go. Just put down a layer of white, and it's equally as gorgeous. So I hope you enjoyed that, and enjoyed that project, and check back soon for another project. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.